Hi, Dhuti.
Hi, Dunbara.
So you have the most gorgeous backdrop I've
I
ever
know.
seen. So
Oh.
where are you?
I'm partway up a mountain, Cragged Mountain in Freedom, New Hampshire. I have spent most of my summer in Freedom.
Wow, I love it.
It's a summer camp. It started in 1927 by a pediatrician from Providence, where I grew up, and my dad was also in his practice, and so we were a part of the camp family, Cragged
Okay,
Mountain Farm. We've been very lucky to be here, just a few
great.
people, a few family members.
Well, it's absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah. Swimming every day in Loon Lake, where we see loons every day. One time I was swimming along the shore and I was, kind of swimming underwater and I came up and I looked and three loons popped up right next to me about, 40 feet, but they seemed very close, closer than that. It was, oh, hello.
Can you imitate the sound they make?
Yeah, I try to. Yeah, something like that.
Okay,
Okay.
let's just talk about your own family background. And you did a little bit there with your dad, but where did you come from? And was music part of it?
Actually, yeah, it was a huge part. Both my parents were very musical, um, and my mom played the piano, and also, in high school, she was in musicals,
Hmm.
and my dad appreciated, very much appreciated. So I did grow up mostly on classical music and folk music and the music of the 50s
Yep.
and 60s. And uh, I'll give you a really sweet memory of um, the last years of my dad's life. He passed 10 years ago, and I would go back to help them. The last couple of years of his life, I went quite often, and I would spend a week or 10 days there, and so I could drive them around and just, he was in a wheelchair and he couldn't move. And we'd have his wheelchair strapped into the back of his handicap van, and I'd be driving. My mom would be in the front seat, and we put on the Reader's Digest collection of, I don't know, it's like four CDs, and there are all these great hymns,
Ah,
and even some more modern songs too, with a variety of musicians singing them, and all three of us would sing. And his booming bass would be in the back, and my mom would sing soprano, so I'd sing alto, and just really joyous memories of that in recent years.
great.
We sang in evening assemblies, and wherever we just sang. I learned how to play guitar here, and learned how to sing harmony here, and so in that respect, it was more the music of like Kingston Trio and
Sure.
Bob Dylan, and the '60s, and Peter, Paul, and Mary. Oh my
Sure.
gosh, their harmonies are beautiful, and they're
Yeah.
not kind of standard. You start listening to them, and they did unusual things with them.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I would definitely credit Craggy Mountain Farm for that. And I came back here after almost 30 years, and I was a waterfront director in this and swimming, and I did music then too. And so I did teach them some Ananda songs. They didn't know
Wonderful.
it, but
Huh.
the one there's so many.
How did you end up coming to Ananda?
Yeah, so I was living in Vermont. I had kind of gone up there. My parents had a house, a ski house there, and so I moved up there and worked in a fancy restaurant and was a ski bum and was in a rock and roll band, and it was the perfect life for in my early 20s.
Well,
And I became vegetarian and was just started doing yoga regularly, and I was already meditating, but it just wasn't enough. My former husband, Vajra, and I wound up in California. We met in Vermont, and we um, we landed in a Volkswagen bus on a bluff in Encinitas, and we didn't know. I guess he had read autobiography many years ago, but I hadn't heard of Yogananda. This was 1977, and um, uh, turns out we were right next to the gardens and Hermitage Gardens, and we started going to the services. And Read autobiography, and then about 6 weeks later, we heard that there was a disciple who was coming to Santa Barbara, a program there. So we signed up for it. It was a weekend program. And the Friday night orientation was at, I don't know, maybe Church of Religious Science, kind of nice auditorium. And the Gandharvas were singing, and Swami talked, and then there was book tables out in the hallway, and I was lingering over the sheet music for the Divine Romance. It was $1.50, but at that time we were skimping, and it was like, you know, and Swami was talking to people, and most people had left, but he came over to me and said, "Oh, do you play?" And I said, "Well, yeah, kind of." He said, "Would you like to hear it?" I said, "Yes." So he took us back into the auditorium. It was just me and Vajra and the other people who were there, and he played it. And the Gandharvas came up and sang in the third verse.
Hmm.
Of course, at that time, he didn't have the words to the first verse, God's Call Within. I mean, the first movement. Of course, I got the music, and that was in January. And in May, on our way back to Vermont, we stopped at the village. And, it was just one of those no-brainers. It was
Hmm.
no question in my mind that I finally found my home. And it took another year to move out there. I got to Ananda, and I had just this, I had paid for 3 months. But and then I was going to go back to Vermont, and I was going to start an Ananda in Vermont. That
Uh-huh.
was my plan. And then I called my cousin, now known as Om Prakash, Larry Ryder, and he lived in Maine. And I had given him the path before I left, and we used to sing and play music together. He moved to Maine and was involved in all the same things as I was in Vermont. We'd connect at Thanksgiving and Christmas and have a really fun time. So when I told him about Swami and Ananda, he had read Spiritual Communities, How to Start Them and Why. And so, of course, he was quite intrigued. And so I called him up. I said, "Lar, I'm staying. Can you drive my Volkswagen out with my guitar and my teepee skin?" And he said, "Sure." So the part I love about this is that his intention was to just stop at a lot of spiritual communities and investigate them, because he was very passionate about spiritual communities. But as I said, I'd given him the path, and I think he stopped at one community. Then he decided to just head straight. So as we know, he's still there. When I was applying for the internship, on the application it said, "Which area do you want to serve in?" And you had the choice of Pubble or publications, the garden or the kitchen or maintenance. And I said Gandharvas. And I was told, I put the other things too. And I was told when I got there that people needed to be at Ananda for a year before they could join the group. So that was in May or maybe June. But in around that next fall, that's when Swamiji created the Ananda Singers, which was Lakshman, Nirmala, Jeannie, Trisha, and Vasudeva. And so the Gandharvas were taking on a few more people. And so I was invited to be a soprano. And I've always been an alto because I love singing harmony, and I don't have a really true soprano voice. I took 4 years of classical voice lessons, and so I've been told I am a mezzo soprano. But I also sang tenor a lot in high school, so I loved that because there weren't very many tenors. And so I said, okay. I mean, don't know if I can sing soprano, but it turns out I could. And I tell this story to people because I was limited in my thinking about my voice, but once I, learned how and warm, practice singing higher, it wasn't so scary.
Hmm.
And it also sounds so different to your own ears. I mean, even now, I'll sing something and I'll say, and people say, no, that was fine. So it's And I don't think they're, I'm talking about people who would really tell you if you were singing off
Did you
and
play guitar at that point, or was it just singing only?
mostly we already had Dinanath and Agni playing guitar, so
Hmm.
I wasn't playing guitar in the group the first couple of years. When we moved to Palo Alto, it was the Atherton House, 1983, in the spring. I started a group there. Radaya was the soprano, and Julia was the alto, and I sang tenor, and
Oh,
Vajra sang bass, and I played guitar there.
okay.
So I guess that's the first small group that I formed.
So share a little bit about what you remember when a Festival of Light was introduced.
Right. So we were living in the Atherton House down in Palo Alto, and Swamiji was arriving from from Italy, I believe, and he asked me and also Agni and Jeannie was there too to come up to the San Francisco house, and he wanted to play the songs for us and teach us, and he was very specific. I remember with the Thunder of Om, just he was very specific of how he'd want the strum, and he would put pointers out and adjustments to us, and also the other songs, like for instance, maybe this information came later, but when we did the oratorio songs, he said do them faster than in the oratorio because you don't want them to be like a funeral dirge, or you don't want them to drag.
Well, so you were around when the oratorio was introduced.
Yes,
So
yeah.
share some memories of that.
It was very special, because we're coming together as a real choir, which before I don't believe we really had a choir before that time.
Ah,
And so this must have been 83
okay.
or so, um, when Swami came back from having gone on pilgrimage to the Holy Land.
Hmm.
And I think he took a month seclusion and at that time. And I think all the melodies came to him in just a very short period of time. The way he would talk about it is he would just think about what it felt like when he was meditating
Mm.
at that particular shrine, and then he would be given the melodies and then the words. And at first, the first I don't know, maybe year or two or perhaps longer that we performed it. Um, and we did perform it right away. We started going to churches, and there was a whole production company, JAPA, Joyful Arts Production Association, and Jeff Rice, I remember, was a part of that, and some other people. But always trying to outreach to bring the music out to other places, and then after a few years, he did the recitatives, which were the introductions to the songs. But at the beginning, there was a narration, and there was a narrator who would kind of tell the story. So it was broken up a little bit, and it was. I remember the first time we did it with the recitatives. It was in Palo Alto, and
Mhm.
I know that Lakshman was um, the tenor and of the soloists, and Jeannie and I were the soprano and the I was the soprano, she was the alto soloist. And actually, come to think of it, it might not have been the first time, but I have such a strong that we did it with the recitatives. But I have this strong memory of Swamiji was possibly in Italy, and he faxed a song to do a new song that he'd just written, and Lakshman learned it and sang it at that performance. I wish I could remember which song it was, and but the recitatives, of course, as you know, have just been such a special part
Mhm.
of the oratorio. In 1985, I was blessed to also go on pilgrimage with Swami and Rosanna, and it's the first time a group went to the Holy Land, and the whole pilgrimage we sang all the songs in all of the shrines, and it was so powerful. There were times I felt that I was just being lifted off my feet
Mhm.
because here we were singing these songs that were inspired, by through Swamiji, um, channeled through Swamiji, the inspiration of all those sacred places in the Holy Land, and I feel that we spiritualized them on that trip
Mm.
because from that moment on, every time I sing any of the songs of the oratorio, I'm transported back to that same vibration of the shrine where it was, that captured the energy of that song.
Hmm. So people who are newer, what would you say to them about how to tune into the music or what the music means?
What I tell people is to just uh, really believe and sing the words with 100% concentration and focus, not just throwing them off lightly, but you're believing every word as you sing it. You're it's and that to me is along with the music itself, it's such a powerful combination because Swamiji's words are just extraordinary, and they have power on their own. They're beautiful, beautiful poetry, and with depth and meaning and inspiration and power. And then you add the music to them, and it's turbocharged. Feel that you're singing from your heart. Feel that you're singing from your throat and your spiritual eye and your even your third chakra. I mean, some of the songs have so much power and courage. And if you're aware of your chakras too, and of course, I love the image of when we're singing in front of the altar. I just feel like I am, you know, the masters are singing right through my medulla, and I'm just kind of this. I've tried to aspire to be just, a pure channel of that. This is has been my greatest uh, way to serve,
Hmm.
to honor Swamiji and Master Ananda, and so my really almost every decision that I have to come up with is how can I serve you, Lord my God? So it's like picking it up from that string. How can I best serve? And this seems to be, at this point in my life, I still can pluck out some notes on the guitar and croak out some songs. And of course, Swamiji's my absolute inspiration in this, in every area, but also especially in music here, regarding music, because of the way he just, he didn't let his age
Yeah.
stop him. He is always willing to say yes and uh, to sing. I remember the last time he sang and he couldn't hear. And it was dark. It was outside. It was in Pune. I was trying to play guitar. We didn't have a flashlight. He didn't have the words. I didn't have the chords. It was a mess. And I think it was recorded, but his devotion and his uh, everything about him just came through, even in that moment, even when he left his body 6 weeks later,
Mm.
and he never stopped
Hmm.
giving and serving. My time in India was really special, and I feel so grateful for that time. I had 3 years where I was doing the music in the Pune community and for all of India, and working closely with Swamiji and uh, and the joy and devotion of working with the Indians and other people, because it really was an international community,
Hmm.
Pune community at its heyday. And people said to me, "Oh, it's going to be hard working with the Indians because they have a different style of singing and they have different notes in the scale, and they don't have harmony and all these things." And I have to say, I did not find that to be true at all. I found their devotion and willingness, and I mean, certainly there's different qualities in the voices because they've been singing a certain style for a while, but the love and devotion comes through. And I've just seen that everywhere around the world. And it's to it confirms to me that the music has a power to um, to change us,
Hmm.
to transform us, inspire us, unite us, um, help us to share this love and joy. I was just watching a video of, I would have been there if I'd been in Italy, but Darshan and some others were singing for a Catholic group, and they were singing, St. Francis songs in Italian. And I mean,
Hmm.
that power of the music is amazing. Kriya is the backbone, the spine, or whatever of our spiritual practices. But I have to say that the music has the blood. I don't know. It's the life force that has kept me going.
If somebody was walking up to you right now at camp and said, "What's Ananda music?"
Hmm.
What would you say?
That's a good question. So, Ananda music is music that has a message, that the words are uplifting, inspiring, encouraging, courageous, funny sometimes. And the, well, first of all, I would say Ananda music is kind of like two branches from the same tree. And the one branch are the songs, and the other branch are the chants. If somebody was walking up to me here, I'd be playing "There's Joy in the Heavens," or "Nightingale," or "Come Gather Round," or "Sing in the Meadows," or one of these. Every Saturday, I've been here singing these songs and just
Mm.
filling this land with that vibration. So yeah, it has the power, and I to really uplift and inspire for future generations. I I have to say, don't forget the source. Like if you want to learn a song, um, listen to Swami. Listen to Swami sing it. Um, and there are many versions of many songs. So in fact, some of the recordings of him when he was young, in his 30s or 40s, I guess, and he's playing guitar and he's just singing the songs solo, because there was not a singing group. There was not the Gandharvas or the Ananda singers or the Joy singers or the Royal Brotherhood Choir or the Ananda Joy singers. There was it was just Swamiji. And um, you hear him sing a song that was recorded in 1960, in the early 60s or mid 60s. He's just singing by himself. And then you hear something that was, like 40 years later, and his voice is very different. You can tell there's a different quality to the voice, but the vibration and the energy of him singing the music is essential, I think,
Hmm. Yeah.
because he was in a superconscious state, and he, every note, every rhythm, every word was, consciously placed there.
Well, thank you, Dhuti. This
Well,
has just been
thank you.
heartfully wonderful.
It's been wonderful.